Welcome to Building Loved Businesses, the show where we talk with business owners and leaders to learn about companies who are loved by their employees, their customers, and their communities, but maybe not so well known outside of them. We have one of those interviews today with Sean Erickson, the founder of the Man Salon. And he's got a really interesting story about sort of almost jumping into a failed franchise and then really doubling down on this niche and growing a business that may not be unknown for much longer. So Sean, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Appreciate you having me on.
So for those of us who don't know you, just give the backstory. Tell us a little bit about you, where you came from and how you got into the Man Salon.
Sure. Well, I'm a South Dakota boy.
Yeah.
Grew up in Western South Dakota. Ended up going to the School of Mines. I was always a pretty big math geek, I guess, and ended up going to the School of Mines and got my mechanical engineering degree. From there, I went out west or out east to Wisconsin and started off working in electronics. Not typically where you would think someone who starts the Man Salon starts off with. From there, we lived out there for about 7 years. My wife was also my high school sweetheart. Moved out there as well. We, after we had our first child, it was just such a far road to get back to family. You know, it was like 13 hours to my family, and not having that support, system there. Man, we got to get back to South Dakota. Literally made a couple phone calls, and we were just thinking maybe by the time, in the next couple of years or so, we would get back. But it took only about a couple of weeks after calling some college buddies that also worked in Sioux Falls. And from there, I'd had some acquaintances that I'd worked with out in Wisconsin that was part of a new business that was a very male-orientated salon. They were growing really fast. They had shot up a lot of multiple locations in Wisconsin, and it was a really neat concept. They had kind of based it on some of the ones that they had seen down south, and yeah, it was a very successful launch. And they were just working on getting their franchising together, right? And they knew that I had, thought that I would be a fairly decent owner to represent their brand here in Sioux Falls. And so we went shopping for locations, and we found, even before we had everything signed, went and found a location that was right beside Shields. And I was like, wow, okay, that's a very...
The traffic won't be a problem.
Yeah, there will be a very good flow of males coming by our frontage. So we signed it right away, and even before we had everything kind of in place, and we started getting to the point where they were going to bring out their contractor to build everything out, and they hadn't really given me much, and they started to go really silent, and it was very, very strange. Then I had to get a lawyer to kind of see what the heck was going on out in Wisconsin. And yeah, it turns out they were having a pretty heated infighting between the partners. And so here I am, a new dad, and
is the lease already signed?
The lease is signed, and I'm just sweating bullets, right? Yeah. What are we going to do?
What do they say about entrepreneurs? It's jump off the cliff and grow wings on the way down, right? Right?
That is literally I've never heard that one, but it's pretty good. That's what it feels like. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But my lawyer, who was watching watching what was going down in Wisconsin, just said, look, if you've ever wanted to just start your own, I guess now's the time.
Right.
And I'm like, you're right. I guess now is the time.
Yeah. Now that's a very different proposition, right? Because the allure of a franchise, which we'll talk more about later, right, is it's like a business in a box.
Yes.
Right. You just follow our playbook,
right,
and you'll be successful. And now, hey, where's that playbook? Where'd that go? Right. And now you've got to figure it all out. So how did you do that? How did you How did you build out that first space,
Sure.
hire people, get into business? Just talk me through those early days.
There was a lot of winging it, that's for sure. And since we had such a short time frame before we had to start paying rent, the first mode was, okay, well, we got to find somebody to build this thing, and called about anybody. And of course, you're not going to get somebody that's going to, hey, can you come in next week to build a salon? And so we just said, you know what? Let's just build it ourselves. And which, I mean, I'm fairly okay-ish with tools, but certainly not any. I wouldn't consider myself a builder.
Did the engineering background come in handy here?
I mean, kind of, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I could. The organizational part was definitely handy, right? I mean, I did the drawings for it, and I put together a project plan and put together, kind of taking that big bite and breaking it down into, here's what we need to do, and then figuring out my timeline to when I'm going to have to start paying rent. So I knew a couple of friends that were available that I could just pay, pay them cash under the table to come help me swing hammers after 5 o'clock. So, after 5 o'clock, I went from being an engineer at Raven to Bob the Builder, trying to get to our timelines of building out our salon. So all that while, we're thinking, gosh, we don't even have a manual yet. Like, we got to start hiring people. Like, plus I need a manager. Like, who's going to be my manager? So we, started to, get out our help wanted ads, and started working the streets on and being a brand new business that nobody's ever heard of. It's certainly much more difficult to have people, you're not typically wanting to get a bunch of people that just graduate. You want to draw some people from other businesses with experience, and them coming to a business that is just starting is a scary proposition, right?
Yeah, and not only that, I'm sure you must have had some people go, a what salon?
Right.
For men?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
Wait, who, huh?
Yes.
So tell me about this niche. Like, what is it about that niche that you felt just kind of knew was underserved and was really an opportunity for a business like yours?
Absolutely. Obviously, most salons historically, they've been directed just for females. You go in there and you have Cosmopolitan magazine and smelling the perm smells and just a soap opera on the TV, and it's just not really comfortable for a guy. And you have some of the cost cutters, those sort of bigger like brands, but they're very you're going in there, you're just getting a haircut. It's chop chop. It's 15 minutes. You're in, you're out.
Yeah.
It's
very transactional.
Very. Yeah, exactly. It's like a factory, right?
Yep.
And, guys really kind of want to get pampered as well, right? And so having an area, having a salon that's really, really focused for guys, it is an important niche to fill, and to be, and it was very open back in 2008 when we started, but it's still a very open book as far as, there's very few salons that really focus heavily on the male population. For us, we, our tagline is the Man Salon, where VIP comes standard. And so it's really important for us that every guy that comes in feels like a VIP, like he's getting the highest level treatment, starting from the experience that you make the appointment on the app or online, making it very easy to do. You can select your own stylist or have any of the next, making that very easy. From when you walk in the door, you're greeted with a smile and a greeting from our receptionist. You can take a seat in a nice lounge area with, we have great free coffee and, water, beverages, all of that if you do have to wait long, which we hope you don't have to wait that long, you have a comfortable setting, and then we walk you back, and every one of our stations is a private suite, and so it's very intimate. You don't have the conversation right beside you, only a couple of feet away, right? And so having all of that, and we have the TV, playing your favorite game or Sports Center right there in your private suite, and we go old school, like so every single time you come in, you're going to get your hair washed. Every suite has a wash bowl, washed, conditioned, while you have a hot towel on your face, like the old school barbershop. And then the neck and shoulder massage. And literally, like, you get done with your haircut. And we see this a lot, especially for the professional crowd, that they'll come in on their lunch break or just take it, a quick 2 o'clock. They can go get a haircut. They're all cleaned up. There's not hair covering them like from many other places. They can, they're all cleaned up, and they can literally go back to work, or they can go out for the night. We make sure that, when you leave there, you're feeling great. That neck and shoulder massage is a big perk. And it's just, it's a great way to relax. And it's an enjoyable experience, not just a transactional experience.
Yeah. I think of the John DeJulius, who has John Roberts Spas in Ohio, right? And he talks about how if I'm doing my job right, I'm not just selling a haircut. He calls it, I'm selling identity refreshment, right? It's like they come out feeling different.
Yeah.
But one of the things about DeJulius is he's really shifted a lot in his career now to focusing on the culture, right? The internal culture of the business. Because to do what you just talked about takes the people buying in on that approach.
For sure.
Right? So talk a little bit about how you thought about and developed culture early on, and then really some of the challenges of building the culture that you wanted.
Yeah. Our vision is really very simple. Our vision since the beginning is making a business that everyone can win. That it's kind of the very mystical equation that, wow, can everyone win?
Yeah.
And I think they can. And so what we do, obviously we focus on our customers, but we first, if you make your employees, if you provide a setting where they can be happy and they can be themselves, that they feel appreciated, making sure that you focus on your employees, right? And making sure that their needs are met, that they're happy. You can walk into a business and you can feel the tone. I think almost everybody can, right? Like if it can be the best service out there, but if everyone's like in a bad mood, like it's easy to feel that, right? Yeah. And so, our strategy on our vision is, happy employees equals happy customers equals happy owners. The happy owners is just the result of the first thing, which is a kind of a waterfall effect to really focus in on your employees first.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes with employees, keeping them happy is also holding them accountable to the best version of themselves.
Absolutely.
Right. So at times, I know when we talked before, you said early on, that was maybe something that you didn't emphasize enough.
Oh, for sure.
So how did you now come back after and say, hey, there are also standards that we have to uphold, and that's my job to hold you accountable. Talk about that evolution.
Sure. When we started, it was, it was a leaping catch just to get it built and get some people hired. And then we, opened and took the picture, and then we're like, oh, now what? Not having the standards was obviously a very, very big thing, not having the playbook. And so we did our best hiring that we could. And I was still working my day job as an engineer here. And, So I wasn't able to be there all the time, especially when we opened. I could be there when we closed. But there was, even for our small staff, there was quite a variance on like, okay, this person came in late, or, this person took a 2-hour lunch, and, and certainly if you don't have standards, things like playing favorites, it creates those undertones of like high drama, right? Because, Sally got away with this, but Kate's getting in trouble. Like, so not having those bars that everyone has to meet is certainly really, really important. And so, the first real, quickly then, we are grinding out and making our manual and making those standards. And then you have to make sure that you're very true on those standards, that you make sure that even though I think it's certainly after, almost 18 years in business, it's still the hardest thing ever to discipline somebody. And definitely it's super hard. If you like firing people, then you probably shouldn't even be in business. But that's just a hard thing to do. But it's required because people have to understand that there are rules, that there are standards, and that if you don't hit the standards, there's a very defined way that you will be dealt with.
Now, I talk to so many business owners, right, who are like, yeah, I know they show up late every day and they're not, they maybe leave early, but I can't fire them because I can't find anybody else, right? Or maybe it's, that person came in late, but they sell more than anybody else.
Yeah.
Right. And so suddenly all these standards start to leak. How do you, did you ever have to let somebody go and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to find a replacement?
Many times.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, sometimes your top product seller by a long shot is just, causing lots of other issues. Some of your top stylists, they sometimes cannot, they can't fix whatever problem they have that's causing them to not hit the standard.
Yep.
And you have to make those really hard calls. And especially at the beginning, I mean, we had zero brand recognition. I think we started with like 6 employees. And so when you take a digger and one of them is let go, typically you don't even have the backfill by then, right?
Yeah.
So you have to, really kind of take that temporary pain for long-term gain, really.
Yeah. What are some of the things you learned through all this, like you said, you kind of bring this engineer approach, right? It's like, okay, there's no franchise. Solve the first problem. I got to build out the space and open by the deadline. Okay. Now the next thing is I got to take that same mindset to building internal playbooks and systems and processes. And, as you've gone through all this now and focusing on the culture and the experience you want to create, what have you learned about your own leadership style? And then how did you bring in some of the other managers and leaders to help you grow this thing?
Sure. So I had, obviously with the engineering background, the systematic approach and kind of the methodology of solving problems is certainly there. But really understanding what the biggest learning curve for me certainly has been is I've typically dealt with like a different sort, engineering people and
right.
Are much different than, let's say, a stylist, right?
Yeah.
And so really understanding that everyone is much different and really that personal touch of understanding that, motivation and things that people want are much different in different settings. And it took me a long time to really understand that, right? And obviously, sometimes in that engineering brain, you think everyone has to be like at the maximum supreme level. And you have to understand that you're just not going to get that every time.
Yeah.
But you can certainly shoot for that, and you can certainly, help people along the way get there and have them aspire to be great too. And that certainly takes time, and it takes a lot of reflection. It's just a lot different sort of crowd that you're typically used to dealing with. And so, learning a great deal along the way. We'd brought in, typically, we were obviously growing and hiring people, and we've decided our first manager move. It was somebody who we had hired right out of school, and you could tell that they were just the natural, they were the natural leader of the pack. And a lot of times you can just see that in people, right? And luckily for us, just being very frank and discussing it with our first manager, and she's like, yeah, I get it. And she didn't even quit. So we've had that quite a few times in our long history. Sometimes managers, they really thought they wanted it. And then once they get it, they find out, I don't want that. It's, it's not worth it. And so she went back, was a stylist for quite a long time for us. Yeah. And surprisingly enough, it didn't, we've literally done that, I think, 4 times in our history, where a manager was in the management role, figured out it probably wasn't a right fit, and then just went back and was a stylist again. And surprisingly didn't cause any internal drama. But, our leaders certainly being fair is one of the biggest things. Is that obviously there's going to be relationships that are stronger, but that doesn't mean that person can get away, with, breaking out of our standards. And, so it's always the hardest thing for people to hold people accountable, especially someone that they might be friends with outside. And that's, that happens in any industry as well, but it's got to happen. And, making sure that those leaders have tools as well. We've certainly used a lot of online leadership training, especially in our training program that we have now. Like the John Maxwell class, things that come through town, and certainly there are some tools out there to help those people kind of gain some of that leadership experience. And a lot of times, they can be very surprised at how well that they can execute. And I think just really a high level of communication. I mean, it's kind of like a marriage, right?
Yeah.
If you don't communicate, it's things never go well. Yeah. In that aspect. And, talking about the good stuff and the hard stuff, it requires you to be present, not looking at your phone while you're talking to somebody, get very, very focused and in the moment when you're communicating with the leaders. And so it gives you, I guess, a lot higher level connection that way.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I see a lot too is that when you look at a business, the cap on growth is not customers, it's leaders.
For sure.
It's like, I don't have enough leaders to handle my growing, to handle the growing team. So having that leadership training sounds like was a really important step for your business.
Absolutely. Because you can't be everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, you'd kind of proven that this works. When you built it and you opened it, did it take off pretty quickly, or were there times where you're like, oh my gosh, is this going to work?
It certainly, I think I had a pretty good start, actually. Yeah. We met kind of our expectations, certainly out of the gate. We knew that it was going to be a slow roll. Our name is very simple. You don't have to guess at all. Well, I wonder what they do. Having that storefront, making possibly the worst mistake of signing that lease before I should have was probably the thing that saved us, right? We're a place right beside Shields where there's guys coming in constantly, setting up in the right location. And people, it's location, right?
Yeah,
People
right.
joke
Yeah.
around, but it's so real, like getting that right location. And we're luckily, out of all 5 of our locations, we have a very, all of them are, I think, very well located in the right spots, in the right parts of town. But yeah, it's been a great ride. I know, what was the first part of the question?
Let me, actually, I'm glad you paused because I want to shift gears here a second. If I go back, right, we talked about, for a lot of people, COVID was an inconvenience, right? There were, my life was broken up a little bit. I don't have the same routine that I did. My kid was home. But for you, COVID was a very different experience. And just, if you could just share that and talk about what that has led to you thinking about differently about the future of your business.
Sure. COVID obviously was the biggest event of our lifetimes, I would say, out of anyone who almost is alive at this moment. For a lot of, obviously in South Dakota, we didn't have any real shutdown rules, but with our business, it was very, very intimate. They are literally touching somebody, right? And so we felt like it was the right thing to do. We shut down for 2 months, kind of during the peak times of it. And we also, created new programs. Like if somebody actually got COVID, they got 2 weeks of paid vacation, those sort of things, and we didn't force, like if somebody didn't feel comfortable coming back, that's fine, but we would hold their spot for them. Just a lot of things of that nature. But for me personally in the engineering world, I'd had, various positions throughout my career, and it got to, the point where it was like zero human interaction, right? Like everything was on a Teams call, and you literally felt like you were locked on an island, right?
Yes.
And so I had lost just a lot of fire for my professional career, and it really got me to thinking, like, look, I'm not getting any younger. Like, you've thought about franchising your business for a very long time, and maybe now's the time. And so I quit my job, and the very first week, well, actually the very first day of not working for somebody, my first salon flooded. Like, I get a call in the morning, and it's just, there's water coming out the door, like something got bumped, and it was shooting water all night.
God's going to test your are you really all in on this?
Sure.
Right?
So I'm like, oh my goodness, this is absolutely bonkers. So as soon as we got that cleaned up, I had kind of arranged it to, we utilized a service from iFranchise, a very great resource for franchising consulting. And we had our strategic plan actually like a block away at the Holiday Inn City Center. Right after the flood, I was really stoked about it. I came home and I'm like, man, I even told him, like, Paul, I'm not on my A game today. I don't know what's up. Like, we had like a 9-hour, strategic planning and everything. And I just got through it, got home, and I was just zonked. And sure enough, I'd COVID, and it wasn't, it was kind of over the big hump of COVID. Like, it kind of felt like it was petering off. Yep. And it just hit me super hard. I could barely breathe, and I was, super high temperature. We had advised by our neighbor who is a respiratory therapist, on kind of what to do, and kept going into the ER, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're fine, you're young ish," and you don't really have any precondition, like nothing to really be afraid of. They kept sending me home, and I'd go back, and my oxygen level just kept tanking. So finally, it was, I think, like the third time that I'd went to the ER, and it was, so bad I could barely even get a breath. And I got in there, and luckily, like through some back channels from my neighbor, they had like their top COVID doctor had her team come down and swipe me out of the ER. And instantly it was just like, I was in the ER in CC3, and it was one of those movies where, you have 10 people in their spacesuits and they're just poking you everywhere. And it was a very frantic beginning of, kind of my long journey in the hospital. But yeah, I was in CC3 for about almost 2 weeks before it kept getting worse and worse. And they would take x-ray of my lungs every day. And it was just that they were just pure scarred. Like if you've ever seen x-ray, it's just like white equals charred.
Wow.
And so scar tissue was all settling in. And they just said, look, at this, like I kept saying, oh, I'm going to get better. I'm going to get better. And they're like, you got to the point where we're going to have to intubate you. And I'm like, oh, great. That, it's never a lot of people that were intubated didn't make it out of it. And so, that we even had one of the nurses said, look, you might, if you haven't like written anything down or anything like that to your family, you might want to do that now.
Wow.
Like kind of saying, what are your last words and stuff like that. So like, I actually made videos, one for my wife and one for each of my kids.
Wow.
Of like kind of my last thing, for them. But I also, so I hid those in a Google Doc folder.
Yeah.
And I texted my neighbor. I'm like, hey, Corey, here's the link. Like, if
Yeah.
anything happens while I'm out, can you give this link to my family?
Wow.
So he's like, still like, gets all, kind of teary about that one. But I also made one that's like, hey guys, it's Dad, I'm just going to take a little nap so they can focus on, fixing my lungs. And so, yeah, I was intubated, and they put me out for a month. And so like during that time, they were doing all sorts of things. Like when you intubate, your body, they can focus on just healing the lungs. There's no, so you're basically paralyzed. And, at that, I lost 70 pounds while I was out, and obviously very atrophied. Like you couldn't move, even you could barely lift your arm up after you wake up. And they had tried everything and said, his lungs are just not getting any better. So, they said, well, we're gonna wake him up, and the next step is he's got to get a lung transplant, and he's got to be on a ventilator until then. And so luckily my wife had them do a trachea, so I didn't have to deal with having the ventilator tube down my throat the whole time. And it was just, you wake up and you're a shell of your old self, and you can't talk, you can't do anything. And so we even set up this communication chart where it's like you'd have letters up in the corners of the thing. You'd look up there and blink twice for B, and then so you had to spell out.
Wow.
And then they would write that letter down. So it was just you go from being hard charging lifestyle to boom, your only thing that you're concerned with or can possibly think about is surviving.
Yeah.
And it gets really real at that point, right? That, luckily, I have a saint for a wife who somehow was literally by my side the entire time. And meanwhile, I have 2 young kids at the time. And I had the easy part, I say, all I had to do is just live, make sure I lived. And she had to keep our entire family going the whole time. So God bless her for that. So long story short, the doctors kept saying, as soon as you test negative for COVID, because I still was testing positive after well over like a month and a half of being in there, and we are going to send you to Minneapolis. We're going to fly you on the plane, and then you'll be like patient 1 on the lung list, and you'll get double lung transplant, which at that point you start Googling those things, and it's like, whoa, that's not a good one to get, to have done. It's very small chance of it working properly. You have a very, very small chance of living very long, and your lifestyle is very, very, the immune deficiencies and everything that comes with it.
Yep.
They only have one chance. So it's like, okay, well, wow, that does not sound like something I want to do.
Yeah.
And so at one point, and they're just like, we can't even take you off of the ventilator to like try to breathe on your own. And so I just had, at that point, they finally gave me a little passy where they put in a certain one where I could like, talk like this, and
yeah.
And so I could start communicating better with the staff, and they were going through my x-rays like normal. And they're like, yeah, they're still bad. We're going to have to, as soon as you are negative, we're going to send you over. And I'm just like, well, what if we didn't? And just kind of, I was like, what if every day I just work towards, being able to breathe? He's like, maybe, you can tell he didn't want to like say no. But I had a really cool respiratory therapist, the main one, and he was just about getting ready to retire. And he kind of took to me like kind of his last mission. Right.
Yeah.
And so he was a really good ally, and even without the doctor orders to do it, we started shutting off the ventilator and like trying to get your lungs to work again.
Yeah.
And and sure enough, we were just every tiny little step along the way making progress, and to where the doctors obviously started to know about it.
Yeah.
And at that point, we just really focused every bit of energy on, okay, well, wow, maybe he doesn't need new lungs.
Yeah.
So,
and how long was that? How long were you in the hospital?
I was in the hospital for 80 days.
Okay.
Yeah. And quite honestly, I probably should have been in there longer, but I had this deadline in my brain. Like, okay, there's this fishing tournament that we're in as a family every year, right? It's actually next weekend.
Okay.
So it was, I had this June, June 11th or whatever, I need to be out of the hospital.
Yeah.
And so like having that deadline, it was just, they're cramming everything in. You're finally, it took a long time to even be able to walk again.
Yep.
And rebuilding strength and, just communicating and doing. And then you're working with all of the rehab people on going to the bathroom because,
Yeah.
So you're like a child, like you're being taught everything again and just cramming it into this small amount of time. And how do you, can you take a shower?
Wow.
It's just weird stuff like that you have to prove out and do all of these different activities to show that, okay, I can walk up 3 stairs.
Yeah. So did you make it to the tournament?
I didn't fish in it,
okay,
but I made it there.
Okay.
And so that was so cool. Like my son, one of my good friends, he probably won't mind it, Seth Lubers. He's an insurance salesman in town, but he's also a pro fisherman. And he took my son to that tournament. And I think they got second place.
Wow.
And yeah, in the picture, my son gets to hold the big fish.
Nice.
It was super awesome. And just even to me, like we have a place on Lake Ponset, and like that's everyone has to have their happy place where, you have to have a place where you can enjoy the sunset and stop, don't look at your phone, watch the sun go down and all the different phases of that. It's just, you got to have that place that makes you feel peaceful.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, How did the business function during that time? And then how did it change the way you looked at it after you got out of the hospital 80 days later?
Sure. At that point, we had a very strong general manager who, and my mom is also our accountant. So she stepped it up quite a bit in providing some leadership. Stacia was certainly involved with it at that time too, but we did have a very strong general manager, and she actually she was involved since the beginning with our franchising efforts at that point, and she was set in line to be, the VP of operations for the franchise. Mm-hmm. We thought everything was golden, and what had started to happen, and obviously I didn't have my eye on that very closely, is that I think that was too heavy of a burden. Mm. She just simply got burnt out.
Yeah.
And I think it affected her family life quite a bit. And at that point, once I got out and we started putting together all of the, the manuals and taking just your little tiny manual and every single step of the way, it's a much bigger scope than how do you run, what are some of the rules of operations? It's, how do you get funding for your business? How do you do a pro forma?
Yeah.
Business plans, like what do you have to have in your business plans? And then, okay, what's the timeline look like? And then, how do you use your design for each location? It's just such a bigger animal than you would expect. And, once we started getting the ball rolling on that, it was pretty much out of the blue. She said, I'm done in 2 weeks, and there's nothing. And she put it in the point, there's nothing you can do to change my mind.
Yeah.
Because obviously I was going to try to change her mind. I'm like, what do you want? Like, it's anything, right? I can't lose you. But at that point, it was kind of, we had all of these salon suites popping up where the booth renting became quite a bigger, they were building quite a few of them. Yep. And everyone understands it. It's any business you go through as an apprentice, basically, right? Like any of the trades, you're an apprentice, and before you kind of graduate on to the next level, and they're building up their clientele, and we always say that in around 5 to 7 years, it's very, very possible that they're going to want to go do their own thing. And because all of their clientele is their clientele, like they would follow them, they're on their Facebook friends with them, they have, cell numbers, that they're close. And so they know that if they would go over and do their own, that they have their clients.
Right.
So we understand that. And it didn't obviously happen right away, but that was in that 2023 timeframe where, my goodness, like we had, one of our managers go off and do that, and she was doing great. And I think the word got out, like, oh wow, she's doing so much better. And so a lot of them, unfortunately, all at the same very short time frame, decided, you know what, I can do that too. And again, I'll never really hold any bad feelings with anyone. I get it. If someone is driven and they want to do something on their own, I mean, I did it too.
Yeah, right.
So if anyone is really driven, that's probably going to be in their thinking, right?
Right. So you lost your general manager, who was going to be the VP of the franchise, right? And then several key employees at once. What did you learn about your leadership? Like, how did you have to step up in those, and how did the business get through that?
Sure. So obviously I was just coming off of my COVID experience. I think in general, my life it's always been like running towards the finish line, right? Like, I got to get here, I got to go, got to go, blah, blah, blah. And after COVID, it really has helped me, like, okay, settle down and be in the moment, right? Like, be very present. And I think a big thing for me was, at that point, I mean, we had in between 40 and 50 employees. It's like you kind of lose the personal touch on just stopping and talking to your employees, like knowing all of their names, like knowing them and saying their names, like not, hey,
right.
And, you don't necessarily have to, like, be friends and hang, like, that's not, but just knowing them personally and being very present when you're, not, I gotta go. Looking at your phone, like all that stuff, like be in the moment. And I think people have that personal touch. It's a big deal when it comes to employees. And that's one. And that certainly goes along with many things outside of business as well, of just having peace with your life, right? And being in the moment. It's a huge, huge thing. Second is really analyzing what we offer as benefits. We had drug our feet for years on, health benefits and all of, we wanted to make sure that we were the employer of choice, and that, when people come over to us, they make more money than almost anywhere. That, at least that's what I have heard, and that they're treated much, much better. Money is great, but some people just want to feel like they're part of a really good team, like that someone cares about them. And being able to, like, when all these personal things, like sometimes your employees go through some crappy things, like I went through. And sometimes they need some sort of help. And if you can help out somebody in their lowest moments, the loyalty is certainly it's a huge jump, right? And just having that personal touch. I know for sure, obviously I lost it when I was out of the game for a long time, but really focusing really heavily on that. Now we've had some, but our turnover is, that was just a very small time frame where I believe I lost 8 people in 1 year. Our GM and 2 of the managers were part of it. So it kind of felt like it was like, oh my gosh, I quit my job. I don't have this income coming in, and I just about died, and just finally made it through. And now you can either get caught in this like the world's against me, right? Why me? Or you can, figure out a way to change it. Because you're the only one that can change it.
And in this case, it sounds like it's truly whatever didn't kill you made you stronger. Because
absolutely,
those are some great lessons coming out of it. And it sounds like, so as we wrap up here, Sean, your future is in franchising. So if people want to learn more about that or stay in touch with you, which I'm sure they're going to want to, what's the best way to find you?
We are just go to our website at themansalon.net. First tab on there is franchising, and so it gives you a little bit of a taste, a small summary, and then as long as there's a little there's many buttons that say click for more information, and then that kicks off our dialogue of going through, and I'll send over a big summary of what we're about, what our business is about, what we offer, obviously franchising, getting all of those standards right, and to have the playbook of every single step along the way. That is certainly what they're going to get from us, and there's a very defined process of how that works, right? Upwards to Discovery Day, where we spend the day together and we go through the different salons, and really for us it's got to be a match from both sides. It's certainly not.
For sure.
It's gotta work for both of us. It's not just whoever has enough money to do this or have
Yep.
score of 720
Right.
in their credit,
Yeah.
here you go.
Well, and I know that the benefit of a franchise is you get the experience of what's come before. And
Right.
we saw a great picture of that today. So thanks so much for being here. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate it.
And for all of you, thanks for tuning in. If you found this conversation inspirational, be sure to subscribe on your favorite streaming platform so we can see you next time. I'm Nathan Schock, and this has been Building Loved Businesses.